Hello everyone, I'm Dan Philgreen, and this is Shellpoint Today for Tuesday, February 3rd. On today's show, we'll meet our new Resort Services and Wellness Manager, Heather Batty. And we'll hear from Director of Project Development, Bob Southern, about some new four-legged neighbors at Shellpoint. But first, we want to remind all of our Shellpoint artists that registration for the annual art show and sale begins today and runs through Thursday. Media accepted for this year's show includes paintings, note cards from original art, pottery, sculpture, stained glass, photography, woodworking, lapidary, scrapbooking, and more. A list of rules is available at either service desk. Registration will take place from 1 until 3 in the Resident Activity Center on the island today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Also, tomorrow is the meeting of the Shellpoint Garden Society. There will be a presentation about South Florida flowering trees given by Stephen Brown, a horticultural agent for Lee County. Stephen also writes a column for the news press and will answer your questions. The meeting takes place at 11 a.m. tomorrow in the Oak Room at the Woodlands. The position of Resort Services and Wellness Manager is a very important one for Shellpoint, and the person filling it deals with many residents every day. So today we are pleased to be officially introducing you to Heather Batty, who has years of extensive experience in similar roles. Her new boss, Dawn Boren, brought her by the studio to do the honors. While she was at it, Dawn used the opportunity to give a rundown on what the Resident Life team is all about.
Hi, I'm Dawn Boren, Director of Resident Life at Shellpoint. Today I'd like to talk to you about what is Resident Life. Resident Life has 4 components. I have Robin Church, who oversees the 3 salon and spas. Terry Colath oversees the Academy of Lifelong Learning and the Pavilion Auxiliary. Diane Morton is our Transportation and Resource Manager, and she also oversees the thrift store. Today I am able to introduce to you our new Resort Services and Wellness Manager. Heather Batty joins me today in her new role as the Resort Services and Wellness Manager here at Shellpoint. Heather, welcome.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm so excited to be here and work with such a fabulous team.
Well, Heather, I tell you, when I was interviewing, of course, it was tough to replace Mary Franklin. She was well loved, but I just talked to her the other day, and I know the residents will be happy to know that she is doing well and fine in her new position. But as I interviewed, I was fortunate enough to have really 2 strong candidates, and you definitely led the way. You have 17 years of background in the area of recreation programming and wellness directly related to seniors. Your last job was at a CCRC, just like Shellpoint. Your job prior to that was a program director at a YMCA. And prior to that, you had a successful business for 10 years, of which you did event planning, fitness programs, and you did that for communities of residents who are 55 and older. So you know this population.
Absolutely.
And you, during the interview process, had 3 or 4 different times that I was able to invite you back to Shellpoint. And tell me what your thoughts were when you joined the campus and walked around and met some of the staff and residents.
Sure. Well, when I first actually moved to Fort Myers, I knew that I wanted to work at Shellpoint. As soon as I started researching and looking into retirement communities, Shellpoint was at the top, of course. And when I actually was able to come on the campus, it only just really kept my interest even going more, because the family environment, the friendliness, not to mention it's beautiful and lovely. And then when I was able to interview with you, you also, Dawn, were able to really express how much you love working here and how long, the longevity here of not only the employees, but also the residents. So it really was able to, for me, really those last kind of reasons why I wanted to be here at Shellpoint.
I could definitely tell in our interview it was more than a job that you were looking for. You were looking for that connection, that higher purpose of service, and in an environment where people supported one another. And I could really tell in talking with you that you were going to make a really good fit here at Shellpoint. You had an opportunity to meet almost all of your team members.
Right.
And I think you got a really good feel of who they are and how well they work together.
Yes. Well, I can definitely credit Mary. They're a wonderful team. Obviously you too for interviewing them and hiring them. It's great to come into a situation where everything is run like this well-oiled machine. They work beautifully together. They're all very accepting, but also full of the knowledge that I need to fulfill the position. So I look forward to really getting to know them all better and working with them and support them as much as I can. It's great to come in and not have anything broken. Everything is working wonderfully. So I'm excited about that as well.
Well, you definitely have 10 strong staff. And the areas that you're going to be concentrating for the residents who may not know, the Resort Services and Wellness Department actually oversees internal programs that are in the happenings section of the Shellpoint Life, trips, both locally and extended, all your fitness and wellness programs, your special events and annual programs, your service coordinator and all the concierge services that come from that area, Phil in the wood shop, and our Captain Jim, and overseeing all the recreation amenities. And Heather's also going to be responsible for the Health Connection, which is all the programs related to your physical health and wellness, and helping with LifeQuest and some of those special events.
Exactly.
And you had a philosophy in wellness that was very conducive to our culture here.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. When coming from another retirement community, which was very difficult, it was hard to leave my residence there, but we came for a really nice reason. My father got ill, but he's doing much better now. But at that point, we decided to move closer so we could help take care of my family. It was difficult to leave residence because with that philosophy of becoming a family and serving and to make sure they're satisfied, I wanted to make sure the next person that came on board would be able to do that as well. But the residents there filled my heart because they said that they were very proud of me for going to help my parents. So being able to come here with that same philosophy of serving and satisfying the residents here kind of makes it feel already like home and that it's a place that I belong. Right. And with the faith of my family and me, my father's doing much better. And as you know, since we've been here, my brother has been injured in a motorcycle accident, which has left him paralyzed. So I do believe that my journey and my path has brought me here to experience his new tiny miracles as he gets better through his journey. So with all that, I really do think that steps and things are in place and they happen for a reason.
And I definitely believe that you're a gift to Shellpoint, and I look for a long-term, relationship with you as a Resort Services and Wellness Manager. And I invite any of the residents to stop by Heather's office, located in the Resident Activity Center. She's already making her way around campus, meeting all of the residents, and so please stop by and say hello and have a great day.
Heather is a delightful person, and we are sure you will enjoy getting to know her in the coming days. Well, we've had some new employee team members arrive lately. We've had new residents setting up housekeeping in the estuary, but these aren't the only newcomers to the Shellpoint property. Recently, our Director of Project Development, Bob Southern, noticed some other new neighbors. He's going to tell you a bit about them now.
Hi, this is Bob Southern, Project Director for the Shellpoint Retirement Community. I was recently out here on the estuary site at night and happened to see a coyote running by. And I'm sure most of you have heard that they have certainly moved into our part of the state. So I thought that we would talk a little bit about coyotes today, just to make sure that everybody is aware that they are around us. It's something new for us, and we need to be aware that they're out there and comfortable with dealing with them to the extent that we can be. Florida first saw coyotes come into the state about 50 years ago. They came in somewhat naturally, and some of them were brought in by hunters and spread throughout the state from that point, the northern parts of Florida, and have been breeding and heading south since then. They are here to stay from what everybody says, and they're not a big threat, but we need to understand more about them. The interesting thing about coyotes is that they will eat just about anything, from virtually every kind of critter they can catch that's not too big for them to catch and eat, down to berries and seeds and fruit. They will eat out of garbage cans. They are omnivores, and there seems to be little or nothing that's not on their menu, including small pets, as you may have heard in the past. Coyotes typically hunt alone or maybe in pairs, rarely in packs. They have on average 6 pups in the spring. Most of them are raised fairly successfully. They are kind of naturally controlling. If the food is abundant, they have more pups. If food is in short supply, their litters are smaller. So they have litters based on how well they can care for them once they're born. Coyotes are most active at dawn and dusk. That's when you would likely see one. That's when you may likely encounter one. That's not to say you may not see them in the dark at night or sometime during the day. Probably more likely to see them after dark. But dusk and dawn is a time when you should be most alert for them, particularly if that's when you go out walking your dog. If you've got a small dog, then you want to be careful about that, and maybe that's not the best time of the day to walk your dog. Coyotes do carry the same kind of diseases that many canines and mammals do. They can be rabid. So if you see a coyote acting strangely, it's probably ill. If you see them out at odd times of day walking through crowded areas or through areas you would not expect to see them, they're probably ill, and that's when you would want to call the authorities and certainly bring your pets and yourself in. They are not threats to people typically. Rare, from what I have read, I don't think there's been an attack in Florida by a coyote. But if, like any mammal, if it is sick, if it's rabid, all that typical baseline knowledge is off the table. Anything could happen. If you are around and you see a coyote and it's in your vicinity, best to turn around and go home and pick up your pet and go home quickly. Now, if you are in an unfortunate circumstance where a coyote is coming after your pet, you need to be very careful with that, because if you try to pick up the pet when the coyote is coming to attack, you may get in the middle of it and actually get bit yourself. So you've got to make that call when you see that going on, or that possibility. Can you pick up your pet and get it to safety before the coyote gets there? If you don't see the coyote until it's in the middle of it, then it's probably too late. At this point, there's not much data that shows that coyotes have been a significant impact to the ecological system of Florida. They are certainly here, but unlike some other critters or plants, they're not having, at least at this point, a huge impact. Now, they are blatant lawbreakers when it comes to the Endangered Species Act, so they don't understand that some species are protected and shouldn't be molested or eaten. So they will have an impact on species that maybe are struggling and aren't as abundant as others. So from that respect, they can be a problem. So to wrap up this little piece, I would say that coyotes are, I think, going to be a part of our future here in Florida. From what I've read, I don't think there's much you can do about it as far as control or eradication. They may become fairly common, but bobcats are fairly common too. You don't see them much, and they're not much of a problem. They are something you need to be aware of, and if you see a coyote from a distance and it's just walking by, I'd say just consider it to be a lucky viewing of an interesting animal. If it's anywhere close or or you've got pets, then you want to be aware of the situation like you would with any predator. So I wouldn't become overly concerned about coyotes. I don't know that, that they're going to become any kind of a big problem at Shellpoint. Just that when I saw one here at the estuary, I thought it was a good time to bring the subject up and make sure everybody's aware that we have new residents in Florida.
And now, let's take a look at today's happenings, Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections.
Hello, Shellpoint, and welcome to the Happening segment of Shellpoint TV. I'm Caitlin Van Scoy, and I'm here with Bev Chanley, and we're going to let you know about the activities here at Shellpoint. We start the morning off with 7:15 Bend, Breathe, and Balance. That's a Health Connections class in the Health Club, and no sign-up is required. At 8 a.m., we have pickleball being played at the pickleball courts on the island. 8 a.m. is also the time for round-robin tennis at the Woodlands tennis courts. Volunteers are welcome to come to the stamp room at 8:15 for the stamp ministry. And at 8:30, the Ladies Golf Association will be meeting at the Shellpoint Golf Club. 9 a.m. is the time for bocce at the Woodlands bocce courts. At 9:15, the Caregiver Support Group Therapy Session 1 will be meeting in the conference room of the Medical Center. You do need to sign up for that. 9:15 is also the time for Memory Care Group Session 1. It's in the conference room of the Behavioral Health Building, and sign up is required for that one. 9:15, open painting will be available in the Art Studio. That's down in the Island Tunnel. And 9:30 is match play mixed doubles tennis at the Woodlands tennis courts. The Women's Ministries Bible Study will be meeting at 9:30 in the hospitality room of the Village Church. From 10 to 12 today, the photo studio and gallery will be open for viewing. And 10 a.m., the Susie Q will be headed out to Woody's Waterfront Restaurant. The sign-up is required. Through the Bible will be meeting at 10:15 in the Osprey Room. That's on the island. At 10:30, the Caregiver Support Group Therapy Session 2 will be meeting in the conference room of the Medical Center, and you do need to sign up for that. 10:30, we have Memory Care Group Session 2 in the conference room of the Behavioral Health Building, and you do need to sign up for that. And 11 a.m. is the time for the Susie Q headed out to Rum Runners for lunch, and you do need to sign up for that. To round out our morning, we have an 11:45 Health Connections class, Living Healthy in the Osprey Room on the island. And here's Bev for our afternoon lineup.
Thanks, Caitlin. That's a busy morning. At 12:30 this afternoon, we start with Mixed Progressive Bridge. That's played in the game room of the Woodlands. 1:15, we have Knitters Group in the Osprey Room. Also at 1:15, we have the shuffleboard players down at the shuffleboard courts. And the Rollicking Recorderists will be in the Tarpon Room at 1:15. And then finally, we have the Women's Ministry Prayer Group at 1:15 in the Hospitality Room of the Village Church. We have a Health Connections class at 1:30. This one is Aqua Pilates Stretch. That's held at the Life Quest Aquatic Center. No sign-up is required. And the Stamp Ministry will be in the Sable Room of the Woodlands at 1:30. From 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, the photo studio and gallery will be open for viewing. And then we have a Health Connections class at 2:45, Balance and Mobility Training Level 2, Session B in the Health Club. At 3:15, the Celebration Ringers rehearsal will be at the choir room at the Village Church. And at 4:15, our Health Connections class, Tai Chi Cha, will be in the Health Club, and that's currently full. We have a hymn sing at the Resident Activity Center at 6:45, and that's the last activity of the day. Well, we're so glad to see you here today, and we'll be back again tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Terry Kolath. We have a full day of Academy classes on Tuesday. At 9:30, we start with writing your memoirs on the computer in the Computer Center at the Woodlands for those who signed up. At 9:45, Understanding Your Computer continues in the Computer Teaching Center on the island. At 10 o'clock, the History of the Middle East to Present Time, Session 1, begins in the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands, and you can sign up right at the door. At 10:15, an Apple iPad class, Apps, 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 in the Manatee Room on the island. Sign up is required. At 1:15, Math in Music, Art, and Nature continues in the Manatee Room on the island. And then at 4:30, the Alpha course continues in the Grand Cypress Room at the Woodlands. I'd like to tell you what's coming up tomorrow. A computer college class, Travel the World Virtually, with Larry Brock of Eagles Preserve. And so you've got Windows 8 now. What are you going to do with it? With Floyd Jamison of Parkwood. Intermediate Bridge session begins with our favorite bridge instructor, Susan Willoughby, and Dr. Harriet Furton-Reese will teach Vintage Classics. Word Processing Prep School with Rich Nelson of Lakewood will also begin tomorrow. I'd like to encourage anyone who is interested in volunteering in the Larson Pavilion to read the auxiliary box on the last page of the weekly reminder. All the information can be found there for openings on our committees and for the required orientation.
Menus for Tuesday, February 3rd. In the Crystal Room, the platter is pulled barbecue pork with cauliflower, au gratin, and buttered corn. For dinner, it's build your own stir fry for $13.95. The soup is baked potato. In the Island Cafe on Tuesday, lunch is the Super Sub ham and turkey with Swiss and fresh fruit for $7.25. And at dinner, it's Mediterranean tilapia with red potatoes and broccoli for $8.25. The Palm Grill has grilled pork chops for $16.95 or Florida grouper for $20.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at shellpoint.net.
Hi, welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm Andy Hawkins, the senior pastor of the Village Church, and I'm here with Jim Davey, who back in the day was one of the senior pastors of the Village Church as well. But Jim, we're here to talk actually about what has unfolded during this past year that we've entitled Refresh and Renew, because we have spent a good bit of time and resources engaged in renovating our sanctuary. And you were part of that process because you were involved in the committee that helped set the stage for acquiring those resources. And so we are looking forward to a Sunday called Celebration Sunday, in which we're going to recognize what the Lord has done through His people throughout Refresh and Renew. And it's going to be an exciting day coming up this Sunday, isn't it?
Indeed it will be. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. I understand there are going to be brass players from the symphony that will be here.
That's correct.
For the service. And if you go back to 1974, when the building was first dedicated, one of the events of that weekend was what is now the Southwest Florida Symphony came and did a full concert.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I understand that at the time, when this venue was originally built, it was the largest venue in Southwest Florida for a concert like that.
Indeed it was. And the Fort Myers Free Press gave it huge space in the paper.
Interesting.
I think they advertised 1,600 seats.
Where did they put them?
Put them, I don't know, but that was in the paper.
That's right. They probably didn't tell the fire marshal, I guess, if they put that.
There may not have been a fire marshal. That's so far back.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's exciting to talk to you because you've been involved in doing some archive work on the Village Church and have looked back into some of the history as well, so you can see how things have transpired up to this point in time. What can you tell us about that first dedication?
Well, a number of things have come to light. Bob Southern has been squirreling pieces of paper away for years, so several of us are going through that. We're finding all kinds of things. Interestingly, on that dedication weekend, there are a number of family names that are still here at Shellpoint.
Isn't that amazing?
Hermine Hartley and her husband Al were involved in that. Beulah Johnston's father, William Smalley, I think had the prayer for the dedication.
Interesting.
And so it's really been fun to see that.
Yeah, I saw the copy of the program that you had, and I was amazed that people who either had specific family connections or some other connection, that there are probably 6 or 12 people that are currently Shellpoint residents and involved in the Village Church who had connections 40 years ago when that first sanctuary was done.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, now we've had a couple of renovations. The original carpet was what?
Well, the original carpet was bright red. You have to remember this was early 70s.
And we just replaced dark green.
Dark green. Well, dark green came in 21 years ago.
Okay.
When I first saw the church, the carpet was bright red, the chairs were bright orange, and the draperies around the stage were bright green. Yeah. And it went downhill from there.
How about that? So in this renovation, as you've seen the sanctuary, What are some of your favorite aspects of that renovation that you like?
Oh, I love the colors. They're current where the old colors weren't, but it's just a softer, more welcoming space. And I don't know, the lighting, I think the lighting is a tremendous improvement. Wherever you sit, the lighting is right, and it can be controlled. It's a mega improvement, and it was long overdue.
Yeah, I really like the background of the stage, where you have those wonderful wooden sound diffusers, which are just lovely, and then they're against the cross is where that is located, and I think it speaks something of the nature of our community as well as the church. And it's a very attractive and functional aspect of that renovation process.
The stage used to swallow the sound, so 25, 30 years ago, someone built fiberglass shells, and they loomed over the back of the choir, and they were trying to push the sound forward or bounce the sound forward, and they would break and fall. It was a mess.
Yeah, this is certainly much better. Well, we have a lot to celebrate. One of the things that we are celebrating is that this coming Sunday is a year after we really rolled out the campaign for Refresh and Renew, and the congregation has stepped up and essentially funded the entire project, and we certainly celebrate the generosity of God's people and the way the Lord has worked to bring it all together, don't we?
God's people have been marvelous. I don't think we had to go to anybody to ask for anything. The money just came.
That's right.
And it was free will giving in the finest sense of the term.
And certainly it was an opportunity for us as the church, the Village Church, to give this gift to the Shellpoint community, because it was the focus of the fundraising was the church. And we wanted it to be a gift to the community because the Village Church Auditorium is used by everyone. Shellpoint uses it for many, many events. There are 200 events a year that take place in that facility.
And with your office there, you know about all of those events.
We do. I hear lots of rehearsals.
Yes, you should.
Well, thank you, Jim, for joining us today. It's a blessing to look ahead to this weekend when we celebrate what the Lord has done through this project. And it's been a delight to work with you and the other members of the committee. And we certainly hope that this will be, for years to come, a wonderful gathering place for the people in the Shellpoint community.
I'm sure it will. Thanks.
So thank you for joining us here in Village Church Connections, and we hope to see you in the newly renovated Village Church Sanctuary very soon.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in tomorrow when we'll get a great recipe for pork tenderloin from Ruth Duber and Dee Dee Darcy in the What's Cooking Kitchen. And we'll talk with Dining Operations Manager Greg Pindara about the Shellpoint Dining Passport. Until then, this is Shellpoint Today for Tuesday, February 3rd. I'm Dan Philgreen, and from all of us here at Shellpoint TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.